Buckle up, everyone. You are strapped in and ready for the Insurance Hour with me, your host, Karl Susman, informing, educating, and entertaining one policy at a time. This is Insurance Hour. Hello. This is Insurance Hour. I am your host, Karl Susman. Thank you so much for being here today. We have a full show, so we're going to get right to it after some quick housekeeping. Remember, the phone lines are open, 559-656-0317. You may call or text that number, or you may email your questions in to questions@insurancehour.com. Remember, if you miss any part of the show later, jump online, search for Insurance Hour. You'll be able to find this show and all the others. We're going on over a year now of entertaining and educating, informing, all backwards from my intro. And so let's jump right in today. We are going to go over listener/viewer/you questions that have been sent in. Let's jump right in. First one, and I'm just going to read these emails as they appear. So let me just get started. Hi there, this is Dennis from Kansas. All right, and I had a wild storm pass through here last weekend. The wind was so strong that it ripped open about 40 feet of my wooden fence clear off the posts. Now I'm stuck with a half-destroyed fence and my dog keeps trying to escape. I'm curious if my homeowner's insurance would help cover the costs to repair or replace the fence, or if I'm out of luck because it's just a fence and not part of the house itself. Do they even look at stuff like that? Let me know what you think. Great question. So in different states have different types of homeowners policies. When we say homeowners insurance, it's more of a generic term because different states will have different exclusions, different things that are included. And when it comes to wind damage, depending on where you are, there may be coverage or may not be coverage. You may have to purchase a separate wind policy, depending again on where you are. This is something you should be able to find relatively easily by checking in your insurance policy, talking to your insurance agent or broker, all that other good stuff. Now, as far as would there be coverage because it's not the house and it's not attached to the house, the answer is more than likely yes. There is part of standard homeowners insurance policies called other structure. Now, I know the fence is hardly a structure, but it does fall under that same category of other structure. So, for example, if there were a fire, then you would be looking to collect on the other structure portion of your homeowner's insurance policy for a fence. So I suppose the best answer I can give you at this point is the likelihood is high that you will have coverage for something like this, but you need to check with your policy specifically, talk to your agent or broker. And I'm sorry to hear about that. Storms are crazy these days, what we're seeing. Really they are. Next email. I was moving some paint cans for a project and classic me, I forgot to secure them. I slammed on the brakes and 2 cans toppled right over onto my back seat, spilling white paint all over my new leather seats. The car is less than a year old, so I'm pretty devastated. I have full coverage on my auto policy, but they do not even handle, or do they not even handle dumb accidents like this? Should I try and file a claim, or is that just going to hurt my premiums for nothing? Wow. I like classic me. Very self-deprecating, always a nice thing. Now, automobile insurance policies do have different types of coverage. And if you're looking for damage to the inside of the vehicle, specifically while the vehicle is in motion, that will typically be under collision coverage. Now, if you're looking for damage to the vehicle while the vehicle is not in motion, that's typically going to fall under comprehensive coverage. Now, this is a unique situation all by itself, because the vehicle was in motion, but there was no actual collision. I think what you're going to need to do is speak to your insurance agent, because this type of a loss is, I would like to say, a fine line between what might be and might not be covered. Now, because it's something that happened by itself, meaning another party wasn't involved, there wasn't another vehicle involved, there wasn't anything, there wasn't an accident per se. It was just something that happened to you. More than likely, if there is coverage afforded on the policy, it will impact your premium because, again, something did happen and it was your fault. Classic you, as you said. So what I would suggest doing is talk to your agent or broker, find out if this is something that could be submitted as a claim. If not, obviously, you're going to have to take care of it. And if so, find out if it's going to be covered under your comprehensive or collision coverage. Now, the reason that's important is most states will not surcharge you, or they will not increase premium if it's a comprehensive accident or a comprehensive claim in this situation. So you want to find out what your options are. You want to find out what is going to happen. But most important thing is find out if there is coverage, if it's going to be under comp and collision, and then have your trusted advisor chit chat with you to see what it looks like from there. Also keep in mind there will be whatever deductible you have for comp or collision that is in place, part of this claim. That's assuming there is coverage. And if it turns out to be a particular comp or collision claim and you're not carrying comp or collision, well, even if it would have been covered, then obviously you would not be able to file the claim and have any type of reimbursement come. Sorry. Okay, next one. Good afternoon. Quick question. I live next door to a rambunctious group of kids, and last week one of them managed to break one of my front windows while they were out playing catch. They're good kids, so I'm not looking to cause trouble, but it's not exactly cheap to replace the window. I'm wondering if this is something I could bring up with my homeowner's insurance, or is it just best to ask the parents to help cover the cost? How do something like this typically get handled? Okay, first, good on you for not just freaking out. Kids will be kids, and I actually remember when I was a kid, we were playing catch, a friend of mine across the street, and I actually threw the ball, and it was not such a great shot, and it ended up hitting the lamp that was mounted above the garage door. I can still see it like it happened yesterday. And it was at the time it was a big deal because that particular light had one of those automatic turn-ons at dusk. So it was a little extra expensive for the time. But to answer your question, the first thing I would suggest doing is talk to the neighbor or talk to the parents' family and say, hey, look, this is what it costs. Your kids did it. Will you take care of this for me? And chances are they probably will. If they won't, then you have two options. One, you can go and file a claim against their insurance policy because likely their homeowner's insurance policy will pay for damage that's caused by their kids, assuming the kids are minors and they are residents of the household where your neighbors live or where they live. Then you would potentially be able to collect on the policy under those circumstances. None of this is going to go over well. Obviously, the best thing to do would be to be able to have the neighbors or have the parents of the kids just step up, do what's right, and take care of it. But again, you never know until you find out. But again, I appreciate the fact that you're trying to do the right thing and not cause trouble. It was obviously nothing intentional, I hope. You didn't allude to that in your email, so hopefully that's the case. And hopefully, like I said, the parents will step up and do the right thing. As an absolute last resort, you could potentially file the claim with your homeowner's insurance carrier. But again, unless you're talking about significant dollars, I would not recommend that because it will be a claim that shows up on the record for your homeowner's insurance policy and for your property in general. Time for a quick break. When we come back, more of your questions. You're learning from Insurance Hour with me, your host, Karl Susman. We will be right back. Let's talk about earthquakes for a minute. Look, we know we live in earthquake country here in California. Powerful, devastating earthquakes have happened here before, and science says that they will happen again. They can't tell us exactly when, they can just tell us that it is going to happen. Count on it. Prepare for it. Did you know that earthquakes are not covered by your homeowner's insurance policy? You need a separate policy to give you the peace of mind that you will be able to recover without getting financially wiped out the next time we get hit with a big one. There is a great company here in California that will provide you with earthquake coverage you need at a price you can afford. That company is GeoVera. I have a policy through GeoVera. I really like how easy it is to choose from all of their great coverage options, backed by the financial strength that lets me know that they will be here for me when I need them the most. Go to getquake.com/insurance hour to learn more. That's getquake.com/insurance hour. Make sure you're ready for the day when the ground shakes again. Hello. You are learning from Insurance Hour, and I am your host, Karl Susman. Thank you so much for being here. Phone lines are open. Give us a call, 559-656-0317. You can call or text that number. Or, of course, you can send your questions in to questions@insurancehour.com. Before I go back to the next set of questions, I just wanted to mention our sponsor is GeoVera Insurance, and they are an earthquake insurance company. And I just want to make a quick statement here. They are a sponsor of the show, but I also want to let you know that I do personally have my earthquake insurance with GeoVera. As you can imagine, I can probably get my earthquake insurance wherever I want, and the carriers would love it if I did. They like me to be able to say, hey, when I'm selling a policy, I even selected them myself. I select GeoVera. I've had them for many, many years. I think they're a solid company with a lot of good coverage options available. So if you do want to get a quote, it's free and simple. Just go to getquake.com/insurance hour and you'll be able to get a quick quote. It literally takes about 15 seconds start to finish. We thank them for their support of Insurance Hour. Moving right along, let's get to the next question we have here. It is as follows. Hello, I am Jamie, and I'm at my wit's end. Uh-oh, this is going to be interesting. I was driving home from work and hit this massive pothole. It completely wrecked my car's suspension. I filed a complaint with the city, but they're saying it could take months for any response. My question is, would my auto insurance cover damage caused by a pothole, or am I just out of luck until the city does something? Great question. I actually had something that I had to deal with almost exactly like this. My daughter, after some of the large rainstorms that we were having a few years back, had this exact thing happen. She was driving, she got off the freeway, there was a pothole, and she bashed the car in it. Now, how does this work? The first thing you want to understand is when there's damage to your vehicle while the vehicle is moving, that's considered collision coverage, right? Now, I understand you might be thinking, well, I didn't collide with the pothole, but the two types of physical damage coverage on an auto policy are comprehensive and collision. Comprehensive, once again, damage to the vehicle if the vehicle's not moving. Collision is damage to the vehicle if it is moving. So to answer your question, collision coverage should be the type of coverage you would have to be able to pick up and take care of this type of damage. Now, depending on the state that you're in, they may consider it comprehensive because it's not an actual object. It's rare, but I have seen that happen in the past. So depending on the coverage you have, you should potentially be able to have coverage under either comprehensive or collision, more than likely collision coverage. Now, what's going to happen is your insurance carrier, of course, is going to have to pay for that. And in the event that they do, they're going to want to get their money back from the city. Now, you mentioned, should you just wait for the city to do something? You can, and they may or may not decide to pay something at some point. My personal experience, this is just anecdotal because I'm one person with one situation that happened. The city doesn't care. They're going to say, thanks for letting us know, moving right along. I don't know that you're necessarily going to be able to actually get money back from them for the damage. Again, in my situation, their issue was that, well, the storm just happened. What could we possibly have done? Not, excuse me, not an unreasonable way to respond, but yet frustrating. So my suggestion would be to reach out to your insurance agent or broker, see what coverage you have that would potentially kick in. I would suggest either collision, more than likely, comprehensive, very possibly, but not more on the fringe. And the next question, which you didn't say, I'm sure you're going to ask, is this going to affect your rate? The answer is potentially yes. Now, we did an entire show about why having claims means your premium goes up. You can go back and listen to that. But in general, just understand that when the insurance carrier has some type of a claim, they're going to evaluate your driving. They're going to evaluate the exposure and what you're costing them. If you're costing them more money, then you are a higher risk and your potential premium will be reflected by that. All right, let's move on to the next one. Hi there, I'm Sarah. Hello, Sarah. I have quite the scare last week. We had heavy rain and apparently a drain in our front yard was clogged. So all the water overflowed and ended up flooding our basement. The basement's finished with carpet, furniture, and everything. I'm not sure if the insurance will cover water damage from a drain overflow or if they'll say that's somehow the responsibility to keep the drain clear. What should I do? This is a great question. And man, it sounds simple, but it could be so complicated. So make sure you take this explanation with I don't want to say a grain of salt, but it's a challenge. So here's the thing. If damage by a pipe breaking happens, that's water damage. That's typically covered under a homeowner's policy. If there's water rising from the outside of the house coming in, that can sometimes be considered flood damage, which would be required for a flood insurance policy. A clogged drain outside that's filling up and backing up and overflowing into your basement, the question becomes, is that water now rising, meaning flood damage, or is it simply water entering the house and that's water damage? Like I said, it's not clear enough from the information you've given me for me to be able to say, I think it is ... but it's definitely something that you should look to file a claim for. This sounds like it was significant damage. I do not think you should be concerned that the insurance carrier is going to come to you and say, well, it's your responsibility to keep the drain from getting clogged. There's no way of knowing, was the drain clogged before the rain, meaning you didn't maintain it, or was it clear as can be and the storm was bad enough that it simply caused that damage? So again, this is one of those times you want to reach out to your agent or broker, give them the situation, tell them what happened, and find out. Also, find out what the type of deductible is you have for a claim like this. Some homeowners policies have one deductible regardless of the type of claim. Other policies will have separate deductibles for separate types of losses. For example, some states will have a wildfire deductible. Some states will have a wind deductible. Some states will have a water deductible. Also, some policies will actually have limitations on the amount they'll pay out for water damage. So again, you want to find out what the specifics are before you file the claim. Find out what your deductible is. Find out how much money you would potentially be able to recoup in the event that you file the claim. And then you can make an educated decision from there. The key is educated decision. And I appreciate the question. It's a good one, and I wish I could give you more of a specific, but it is just challenging. You know, it reminds me I should probably make a quick statement. I like to do this every once in a while. You know, I've been doing this for a lot of years. I'm not a claims adjuster. I'm a licensed insurance broker. A lot of times I'm getting questions from people that are about, is this covered? Is this not covered? And while every claim is evaluated by the insurer based on their own individual merits, I do the best I can to give you the information you need to maybe ask the right questions and to try and set your expectations somewhere. But understand that this is not my profession, so I might get it wrong. If it turns out that you're getting information that doesn't sound right or doesn't pan out the way I have discussed it here, please reach out and let me know, because if there's something that I can learn and pass on to everybody else, then better for everybody to have correct information. There's no ego here for me. I just want to get the best possible answer for you that I can. And if that means having some egg on my face and finding out that I had said something that did not pan out, or I didn't have enough information to give the right answer, then by all means, I do want to do that. On that humble note, it's time for another quick break. When we come back, more of your emails. You are learning from Insurance Hour, and I am your humble host, Karl Susman. Be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, in just a few moments, the Window to the Magic podcast show will begin.
My name is Patrick.
My name is Calvin.
I'm Mouseketeer Gray.
My name is Paul, and I will be your guide through the wonderful world of Disney sound experiences.
This show is a weekly trip into the world of the Disney theme parks and resorts.
And this is the place where you get to use your ears to surround yourself with the magic.
For your safety, please remain seated while listening to the WindowToTheMagic.com podcast.
Maybe there's a name for this, something like Disnotic obsession. Please visit WindowToTheMagic.com for more information, or you can find us on Apple Podcasts and in the iHeartMedia app.
Hello. You are learning from Insurance Hour. I am your host, Karl Susman. Thank you so much for being here, and welcome back. Phone lines are open, 559-656-0317. Call or text that number, or you can shoot us an email to questions@insurancehour.com. We are taking your questions that are submitted. Remember, if you do send an email, let me know if it's all right to read on the air. If you leave a voicemail, make sure also you let me know, can I play your recording on the air or just read the question? I want to honor your privacy however you want it. Next question from you. I just bought a new car, and wouldn't you know it, my nephew accidentally scraped it with his skateboard when he was playing outside. There's a pretty big scratch down the passenger side door now, and it's not cheap to fix. Is this something I can file a claim for, or should I have to chalk it up till life happens? Do car insurance policies even look at minor stuff like scratches? Thanks for any advice. This is a good question as well. First, I can't help it. When I hear skateboards, it brings me back to my youth. I was not a skateboarder. Not ultra coordinated and not very physical. So I remember all of my friends, they had their cool skateboards and they skateboarded around, and I got a skateboard because I had to be, a part of that crowd. And it never went well. I would fall off. I felt like I had to push 2 or 3 times, and I would go 2 feet and have to push 2 or never worked out for me. So first, I have to say, I hope your nephew is okay and enjoying his skateboarding days for those who actually have the skill set to do it. I clearly never did, but I digress. So here's the situation. you can file a claim for the damage to your vehicle. There is no such thing as too minor or scratches. It's damage to your vehicle. Now, having said that, if it's just scratches, it's likely going to fall underneath the deductible that you have for the vehicle. Now, you have two types of coverage. We've talked about this actually quite a bit today, comprehensive and collision. I'm not going to go back into it. Just go ahead and rewind or go back to the beginning of the show, and I discussed it in quite some detail. But you don't have to chalk it up to life happens. You can potentially file a claim if you want. But again, the way you're describing it, I don't think you're necessarily going to see enough damage that would be above your deductible to make it worthwhile. Maybe talk to his parents, see if maybe they want to cough up a few bucks. But you might be able to find someone that can either buff it out, or if it's just scratches, maybe you can get some touch-up paint from the dealership. I've seen that done with a lot of success at some point. And like you said, life happens. Let's get to the next one. Hello, my name is Alan. I was playing video games with my teenage son. Hey, good for you. And let's just say he got a little too into it. He threw his controller, and now my TV screen has a giant crack in the middle. I didn't think homeowners insurance would cover accidents like this, but I'm hoping there's some way to salvage the situation. Okay, well, first, good on you for playing video games. I'm the generation that started video games, okay, just saying. But we just had a joystick, and it went in 4 directions with a push button on top. Now, this generation has joysticks and buttons that I think there's 15 different options of buttons and switches and levers and knobs. My brain was never able to pick it up. So good on you for playing today's video games, because, man, I look like there's something wrong with me when I try and do it. So you use the term accidents like this. It would be difficult to claim that someone hurling their game controller at the TV was an accident. They may have said, oops, but that doesn't make it an accident. The short answer is this is not something that you're going to want to file a claim for. The likelihood of having coverage is very low. The likelihood of you having the damage be lower than the deductible anyway is extremely high. And this would be a claim that if the insurer did pick up, they would definitely underwrite based on this. That's your next renewal, right? They'd say, well, if he's got someone in the house throwing stuff and breaking stuff, who knows what else that person might do? It's not an unreasonable thing to be thinking. So I think maybe what you need to do is take a deep breath, deal with it, and chalk it up to one of those things, right? Maybe the kid needs a little bit of anger management, right? Again, sorry that happened, but I'm going to say I do not think this would be something you want to necessarily take up with your insurance company. All right, next one. I'm reaching out with a crazy problem. My automatic garage door malfunctioned and somehow came down right on the hood of my car while I was pulling in. The car is still drivable, but the hood is dented and the paint is messed up. I'm not sure if I need to file a claim under my homeowner's policy or my auto policy, or if either would even consider this happened since it's in my own garage. Could you shed some light? This is a great one. Who's this from? Tim. Tim, that's a great question. Now, damage to your vehicle is damage to your vehicle. So we're going to be looking at your automobile insurance policy. Now, if your garage door fell on someone else's car, then we'd be looking at your homeowner's insurance policy, right? But in this situation, we would be looking at your auto policy. Now, what happened is damage to your vehicle while the vehicle was in motion, right? The car was moving and the garage door fell on it. Now, this is something you could file on your auto insurance policy, but this would be a chargeable incident. This would be something that is, for lack of better terminology right now, a chargeable at-fault incident. So before you do that, check your deductible, see if this is something that's worthwhile to file a claim on. It might be less expensive to take it to a body shop, have them kind of bang it out and buff it out and see if they can make it look in a way that's satisfactory to you. I have to tell you, I'm not personally a big car person. I was when I don't even want to say I was when I was younger. Maybe even I was more than I am now, because now a car is just a car. But, a little dent here or there, a little scratch here or there. We had another person that sent an email in about his skateboard. I think it was his nephew damaged his car with his skateboard. There's some scratches. I mean, keep in mind, insurance policies are there for large losses. They're there for catastrophic loss. They're not there really to pay for a few scratches here, a little dent there. They're there in case someone steals your car, in case you're involved, hopefully never, in a massive accident where the vehicle sustains massive damage and potentially there's liability where someone gets hurt or even worse. And I think we sort of fall in this situation these days where we look to our insurance policies more as maintenance policies or oopsie policies where that's really not what they're designed or priced for that matter. So if something small happens, the first knee-jerk response should be, okay, if I'm walking around and talking about it, then it's not that horrible, and let me see what the cost is first. You don't want to necessarily always try and find a way to get coverage on your policy, especially for small claims, because again, if the insurer is going to pay something and it's your fault, meaning there's not a third party that's responsible for it, then that's something they could potentially rate you for when your policy renews. So you might be able to wiggle your way in to get coverage, but if all of a sudden your premium goes up because you did something that caused damage, then was it really worth it? So again, my 2 cents is I would not look to file this claim unless it's significant and you're comfortable with the potential of your premium going up. But thank goodness you didn't get hurt. Garage doors falling down can be very dangerous, and you definitely want to find out why that happened and get it fixed, because next time it could be you standing under the door and not the car hood, which would be just horrific. Time for another quick break. When we come back, more of your questions. You're learning from Insurance Hour and me, your host, Karl Susman.
Have you been dropped by your insurance agency or seen your premiums skyrocket? Susman Insurance is here to help. We're a family-owned and operated insurance agency that's been serving our community for 2 generations. At Susman Insurance, we know how stressful it can be to find the right coverage, especially when prices go up or you're left without insurance. That's why we're committed to finding you competitive rates, whether it's for fire, home, earthquake, flood, auto insurance, you name it. We've got you covered. Give us a call or send a text to 310-820-5200 or visit us online at sussmaninsurance.com. Plus, stay updated on all things insurance by joining our text group. Just text 567-4CARL with a K. That's 567-367-5275 to get the latest updates straight to your phone. Susman Insurance, your family's insurance solution.
Hello. You are learning from Insurance Hour with me, your host, Karl Susman. Thank you so much for being here. The phone lines are open, waiting for your insurance-related calls. Give us a buzz, 559-656-0317. You can also email your questions in to questions@insurancehour.com. All right. Remember, we want those questions. This entire show so far has been your questions. We need them. We want them. Remember, in the event you have a question, chances are you're not alone. I forgot which insurance company had these commercials running for a while that said they would show some bizarre claim incident and they would say, we've seen this before. We've been doing this for a while. Which insurance company was it? I like insurance company commercials, as you can imagine. Yes, that's the insurance nerd in me. At any rate, let's get back to your questions. All right. Next question. Is there a person? Carmen says, I had a quick question about insurance and power surges. This is a good one. After a big storm, we had a power surge that blew out a bunch of things in my house, including my pool pump. Those things are not cheap to replace, and I'm wondering if my homeowner's insurance might cover it, or if they'll just chalk it up to an act of God kind of thing. Any advice? I love the act of God thing. Arguably, everything that happens we could say is an act of God, right? But I understand what you're saying. Now, power surges are interesting, and the proximate cause, it's called, has a lot to do with whether there's going to be coverage for it or not. So your policy is specifically going to have to determine that. You're going to have to check with your agent or broker to find out. In general, when we see power surges, the type of claim that we see has to do with food spoilage, right? So there's a power surge and it knocks out the power, or it knocks out one of the appliances like your refrigerator, and all of the food spoils. So we see that happening, and there is typically coverage for that sort of thing. Now, this is specifically damage for your pool pump. Now, it's possible you might have coverage for this under your other structure coverage. Now, I know pool, other structure, equipment for the pool, doesn't make sense. Let me give you just a little 2 cents on this. Anything that's not attached to the house can be covered under other structure in most cases. Now, that could be a detached structure like a garage, a fence, actually, as we had discussed earlier today, or in this case, a pool. For example, if you wanted to get coverage for your pool, you would have to increase your other structure coverage to be sure you have enough coverage. Now, pool/pool equipment will tend to be the same thing. So if you have other structure coverage and you have the pool covered, then it's extremely possible you would be able to get coverage under your homeowner's policy for this. Now, what's also important about this, and this is going to be a welcome comment to make after the last bunch of emails, when there's a storm and something happens that is beyond your control, that is typically considered what's called a CAT loss, which is short for catastrophe or catastrophic loss, right? If there's a hurricane, if there's an earthquake, if there's a major wildfire, if things like this happen that are outside of your control, then insurance companies will mark that as a CAT loss. And what that means to us as consumers is that's typically not something they're going to underwrite us on later. Now, what does that mean? That means they're not going to look at us with that claim and say, oh, they had a claim, we had to pay out money, and underwrite based on that. They're going to look at that and say, it was a CAT loss. It happens. Maybe you could consider that it was an act of God, not their fault. However you want to look at it. So it's a good idea to find out when you're going to talk to your agent or broker about this type of a claim. Is this going to be a catastrophe event? Is this a CAT loss? Now, all agents and brokers will know that jargon. So you might ask them straight out, say, hey, was this last storm considered a CAT loss? And first, they'll be so impressed with your knowledge of insurance. They'll say, how did you know that phrase? And you can say, well, I pay attention to Insurance Hour. Maybe you should too. Just kidding. But at any rate, you do want to talk to the agent or broker, find out if it's a CAT loss, because that might help you decide whether it makes sense to file the claim or not. Remember, there are deductibles for this type of thing, just like any other physical loss to your home. I think that's about all I have on that. Sorry to hear about that. Next one. I accidentally started a small fire in my kitchen after I left my toaster oven on and walked away for too long. The fire department came out and put it out, but the cabinets and part of the countertop are pretty burned up. I don't want to be embarrassed filing a claim if they're going to reject it, or this because it's my own fault. Do insurance policies usually cover accidental kitchen fires like this, or am I going to have to pay for the repairs myself? Okay, here's the situation. The short answer is kitchen fires are covered. Okay, now you said accident kitchen fire. Well, I would certainly hope that there's no intentional fire caused in the kitchen. Intentional damage of any type is categorically excluded from insurance policies. You can't create a loss and then collect on it. It's a big no-no. It's actually considered fraud. So no. So you're saying this happened accidentally and there's damage to your kitchen because of the fire. The answer is yes, you would have coverage on that under your homeowner's insurance policy. I'm going to say that, whereas I normally say almost always or pretty sure of that, because this is a very common type of loss. Now, assuming you have fire coverage on your home and there's no particular exclusion for acts that you do personally, which I have only seen once before, this could be something you could file a claim on. Now, with a big asterisk on this, I want to say keep in mind, yes, it was an accident, but this is definitely something, if you file the claim, the insurance company is going to look at when it comes time for your policy to renew. If they're insuring you and they're insuring your next door neighbor and they're charging the same price and now the policies are coming up for renewal, you set your kitchen on fire accidentally and your neighbor did not, who do you think deserves to have a cheaper premium? Well, you might not like it, but the likelihood is your neighbor would, because they haven't had that incident happen, right? They didn't accidentally leave the toaster on and create a fire. So find out how much how much damage you're looking at, check your deductible, and then make an informed decision. Also, talk to your trusted advisor, your agent or broker. Tell them what you told me and say, look, what do you think about this? Is this something that's going to affect my premium? And if it is, potentially, how much? And decide. Depending on where you are, if the insurance market is fairly wide open, you might not be looking at having a significant premium increase. It might certainly make sense for you to file the claim. It sounds like a lot of damage occurred. However, if you're in a state where insurance is difficult to come by, then you might really think twice or three times or even four times before filing the claim. Because in the event you do have a premium increase, or even worse, a non-renewal for setting your kitchen on fire, I suppose, it might be extremely difficult for you to get replacement coverage. And nobody wants to be in that situation where they don't have a policy or being non-renewed. There is no other alternative. So again, your agent or broker is a great person to talk to about this, to find out what the ramifications are and what the possibilities are in the event you do file and there's a problem with the insurance policy premium later or being non-renewed later. Be careful with the toaster. Be careful with the toaster. You know, it's funny because I have gas stove at home and of course, electric toaster. And I've never thought about the toaster creating a fire because I feel like, You push the button, it does its thing, and it turns off. But I suppose if you turn on the actual broiler part, the actual oven in the toaster, it stays on as long as it's on. It's not just a matter of the gas stove and the open flame. On that note, time for another quick break. You're learning from Insurance Hour with me, your host, Karl Susman. We will be back in 60 seconds. Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, in just a few moments, the Window to the Magic podcast show will begin.
My name is Patrick.
My name is Calvin.
I'm Mouseketeer Gray.
My name is Paul, and I will be your guide through the wonderful world of Disney sound experiences.
This show is a weekly trip into the world of the Disney theme parks and resorts.
And this is the place where you get to use your ears to surround yourself with the magic.
For your safety, please remain seated while listening to the Window to the Magic.com podcast.
Maybe there's a name for this, something like Disnotic obsession. Please visit windowtothemagic.com for more information, or you can find us on Apple Podcasts and in the iHeart Media app.
Hello. You are learning from Insurance Hour. I am your host, Karl Susman. Thank you so much for being here today. Phone lines are still open, 559-656-0317. Call or text that number with your insurance-related questions, or send us an email, questions@insurancehour.com. Now, I want to let you know that there's been a lot of Q&A on this show, so if you've missed any of it and you're just tuning in, jump online, search for Insurance Hour, and find this show and listen to the entire show, because there's a lot of really good info in here. You'll find us on Apple Podcasts, on Alexa, iHeartMedia. We actually have a video on YouTube as well if you're curious what I look like. Spoiler alert, nothing special. But make sure you go ahead and get the show in its entirety. These are great programs when they're Q&A like this to download and have on hand for when you're going on long drives or a flight and you're looking to just sort of kill some time and get some good information along the way. So feel free, find us anywhere, just search for Insurance Hour. All right, back to your questions. A huge tree fell across my driveway during the last windstorm, and now I can't get my car out. It didn't hit the house, thankfully.